Thank you. Thanks, Andrew. All right, this is weird. Never done anything like this before, but it's cool. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm Jay, alcoholic. Like I was saying, it's always good for me to get out of my comfort zone, and this is one of those times. Expand that comfort zone. So, okay, my sobriety date is November 5th, 2014. I have a sponsor who has a sponsor, and I also sponsor other men. So tell your story. The last time I told my story was in a group therapy session when I first got sober this time. And I took up the whole group, and then we had to like finish it the second time. So I'm going to like streamline and be better at it this time. So I am 34 years old. I know a lot of it's all YPA is what through this, YPA kind of connected me to this page. So I don't know anyways, the average age doesn't matter. Okay. So I would say early on in my life, I was always, I would say looking back on my childhood, as far as like alcoholism, addiction, like looking back on it, I had the type of tendencies early on in life. I've obsessed about things. I thought I was just really into like toys, like G.I. Joes or something, but I had to have all of them, and I obsessed about it. So after, being an adult and looking back and knowing that I'm an alcoholic and, obsession, and, I see that it's just been the case for me, like my whole life. And so high school, party a lot, right? I always had parties at my house. It kind of helped let that define me as who I was, like where I belonged in school, and, how you have to like figure out a group you're going to hang out with or whatever. Well, I quickly gravitated towards the partiers. And because like if I figured out very quickly that if I drank or used anything, that I no longer was nervous to talk to girls. I was no longer nervous to be around people in social situations, which seemed to be kind of tricky for me in school growing up. So moving that forward, that was the solution. That was my solution. I had found a solution in drinking and using. And as a result, I kept doing it, and it became more and more of a priority for me that it had to come before everything else, like other people say, I can relate to this is, as my alcoholism progressed, my definition of an alcoholic, got worse and worse. It's like, well, I don't drink every day, so I'm not an alcoholic, or okay, well, I still have a job and a car, and so I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not under the bridge. I'm not homeless. Well, that all happened, so I ran out of excuses of why, I didn't have a problem. And then came the whole, okay, well, that's what I am, so that's what I'm going to be. I'm an alcoholic, I'm an addict, so that's what I'm going to do, and didn't really come with the responsibility of changing anything until, so I'm from Michigan. I ended up like in Detroit, like homeless in Detroit, like situations with guns in my face, like stealing for, things, we'll just say, and I'm not going to get into specifics. I really think that's besides the point. Yeah, so it became my life, and the party ended a long time before that. That's what I realized, because it's like, that's why I did this stuff in the first place, because it felt good, and, it was something fun, right? And that ended, and then just became a full-time job with no benefits, I like to say. And yeah, so So then I had this like gift of desperation to do something about it at some point, right? So I'm homeless on the streets. I finally call my parents. I'm 19 years old at the time. So this is 2005. I don't know. I'm not good with math. Anyways, um, well, okay. So there were, in 2005, there was a couple of times where I went to rehab where it was like, please my parents. It's like, yeah, they figured out I had a problem or whatever. So I would, go, and I'm like, sure, I'll listen, but I wasn't like willing to like really change that much. And it's like, what? Stop altogether? Like, that's not an option. And so, you know, I got the same results after I got out because I wasn't willing to do anything different. I would try adjusting different things, but all in all, same result. Moving forward, that's where the gift of desperation comes in. So I kind of skipped that little first part, but okay. So now on the streets, totally like ready to do whatever I had to do. I had the willingness. I had the drive to like do whatever it takes, like I just don't want to live this way anymore. I was like in Detroit, drug dealers were starting to owe money and it was not a good situation. And yeah, and I could see that. People I was running with jumped me and yeah, it's just bad. So I was like 23 at the time. So it was 2006 and I was 23 in Detroit. And yeah, so I called my dad. They kind of wrote me off. Like it was just, I was done, and they kind of wrote me off, but I borrowed somebody's cell phone on the street. They let me use it. I don't know why, grace of God, I guess. But they let me borrow their cell phone, and I called my dad and I was like, look, I just want to get into rehab. I don't want anything from you, which is like new, because I always needed something that had some type of scheme of why I needed some money or whatever. And he's, by the grace of God, he's like, okay, like, where are you at? I'll pick you up. So comes, picks me up. I go into like a state funded facility. And I was just ready to do whatever I had to do. I remember telling my counselors, like, look, like I always have parameters of like what I'm willing to do at any situation. And like, I think I know what's best. And it's like, okay, this time, look, like, you tell me what I got to do. And I was there and like, I was embracing it. And, it was, I was just happy to be somewhere with like hot food and not an abandoned house. And then I was like, yeah, I'm doing this, like to my counselor one day. And like all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah. And I was really meaning it. And then he goes, I think you should stay for 2 more weeks. And I'm like, but weren't you listening? Like I'm doing everything I got to do. Like, like I'm ready to move on. And then at that moment, before I was going to say that, I realized, look, that's me trying to like call the shots again. So I'm like, whatever you think I need to do, that's what I'm going to do. So I stayed. And then I ended up, when I graduated from there, when I got done there, I moved to a halfway house in Florida. So I'm at this halfway house, taking it seriously, doing whatever I got to do. Yeah. And like, actually, I don't know if I should get into this part, but there was a girl that I was dating, like that was down there too, in a different 3/4 house. And like, and she was like in a different, yeah. It's like the place takes you to different meetings in the city. And I'm like, right out of rehab, a couple weeks sober, and I'm at a meeting, and like she walks in, and we were like codependent, using and drinking and all this crazy stuff like before that. And she got like kind of pulled out of the scenario by a family intervention and sent down there. Well, I went down there too, partly for codependent, trying to, but I was ready to do what I needed to do. And, but anyways, so I go into a meeting that the shuttle drops me off at, and she's there with like her new boyfriend, and I'm like a couple weeks sober, and it was like really hard for me. And then like they got married and she got pregnant and all this stuff, and it was like all, and I'm just like trying to, stay sober after a few weeks. And there was a part of me that got sober for that whole situation. But I mean, it turned out being great where I had to let that whole thing go, and then move forward and concentrate on my program. And, I ended up moving out of the halfway house after like 9 months. I got an apartment down there with a buddy that I met in there. Got a new girlfriend, but that was besides the point. She was also in the program. Stayed clean and sober, clean and sober. Um, uh, and for like 4 years, and then there came a point where I was like stagnant in it, and I wasn't like continuing to grow in my recovery. So, I was taking my will back in situations and whatever, and it became a point where I was like, I didn't think I really needed the program. It was more about the substance. If I don't do that particular substance, I'll be okay, right? Like that's where my head was at, because I wasn't like staying connected that like I'm the problem and my way of thinking is the problem. So I took my will back and I started drinking and smoking weed. As long as I didn't do like hard drugs or whatever, I'd be fine, right? And that actually went on for a couple of years. We ended up breaking up. I moved to Arizona, and I was out there for a few years, kind of doing the whole deal. And I ended up moving back to Michigan in 2011. And yeah, shit got worse. Shit got worse. And, it really wasn't about the substance for me, because like I had always looked at like other substances like taking me to like a bottom, and that's the problem, right? But I mean, alcohol had always been a constant, but it was like, as long as I don't go to the other stuff, I'll be fine. So, and I was drinking every day, and it was just it was a replacement for it, and it was always, whenever I would mess up, it was always going back to alcohol. But that led to other things, and stuff got worse than ever. Which was a different type of bottom than I had before I got sober the first time, because I still had a job. I had my own apartment, and like I was paying bills, but yet, I always thought that if I could manage like an apartment and a job and be able to pay my bills, that I would be able to use successfully. And that was shattered because I was able to afford like a very expensive habit. And I worked for a beer distributor, so I had free beer like all the time. And so yeah, like I hit a very like spiritual and emotional bottom where there was many times where like, I had a place to live, and I had like those things that I thought that were like holding me back in life. Um, but there were times where I would go to sleep at night and kind of just wish I wouldn't wake up, because I didn't want to do it again the next day. So it's another type of bottom. And it's just crazy that I was going like through all of this after that first, like, scared straight moment of like on the streets and stuff. But it's just crazy that there's different types of bottoms. Like, I don't like to think of a rock bottom, because there's just so many different types of bottoms, and like, I guess I'm fortunate to be able to experience different types of bottoms. But so yeah, I hit that emotional bottom, and I got back to rehab, and this was in like 2014, and went back to rehab and realized that like I needed to like really do this and be diligent on the program, and not just, kind of half-ass and, cut corners and everything. And because I mean, obviously, like I'm still sick, like out of all these different things. Like, obviously there were like one thing, I beat myself up really bad, like after getting back to the program, after having a few years sober. And there's one thing that I kind of gained out of that was like, I didn't do everything wrong. There were some things I did right, but where did I go wrong? And what part of the program was I not doing right? And like, it was pretty easy to figure out, is that taking my will back, like accepting life on life's terms and not trying to force my will on situations. But so this last time around, 2014, I get sober. I was fortunate after 4 months that I started working at a rehab, and I knew rehabs in and out, like total, like maybe 8 or 9 of them I went to, like over the years. I kind of left a lot of details out because it doesn't matter. But, so, this last time around, I worked at a rehab for like a year and a half with like brand new people off the street. And it's like, I knew like where they, where they were. There was people coming back from relapses, and I could relate to that. And I was just completely open about being in recovery and being a part of the program. And yeah, this whole time, this time, has been a lot different because, it's like diligently applying the principles of the steps into my everyday life. And I'm not perfect at it. My friends will be the first ones to tell you that. And, one thing I said when I was picking up my 3 years, I was like, I didn't come here to make friends. I came here to not die and to not like live the life that I was living. Anything else was better than the way I was living. But it was fortunate that like I found meetings, like I believe like my higher power, like directed me into like places, and like the people that I've met have all been an example of like recovery. And like I wanted what they had. I mean, how did they get it? They worked the program and applied it into their life, and worked with a sponsor. And yeah, and like my first Mickey Paw, I was like a month sober. So it was like, yeah, Mickey Paw 36 in 2014 at the end. And it was a eye-opening experience. That was one thing that I missed out on in my first time in recovery, not YPAW, but just having fun in recovery. Like I isolated away from social situations because, like this just wasn't that wasn't my life anymore. But after seeing what happens in YPAW and stuff, it's like I was able to socially grow without the benefit of using drugs and alcohol. And it was just like it was a growth experience for me, that it's like that fun me was not the substances, that was really me. It was just, I needed to get past this, like this shroud of like, I guess armor away from everybody else, because like the real me was in there and able to, relate to people and socialize. It was just those insecurities that I have and fears, like, hey, a great 4-step really helped me understand that. And it's all comes down to fears, and like YPA and AA in general is a good place to, it's like a safe place and comfortable, at least I like to look at it that way, comfortable to be myself and to see people actually like my company for just me being me, and that was really important. It was really important to be able to see people having fun in recovery, like I didn't, like, we're not a glum lot. Like I didn't get sober to be lame, and it's like, as a result of working the steps into my life, like, and working with a sponsor and staying, with my program, that, I've lost the desire to drink and to use. And like, I can go to shows, like me and my girlfriend go to concerts all the time. And like, if there isn't a, temptation, if there's not a desire, then there is no temptation. And I don't think that's in the book or anything, but like, I really, like, if I don't have a desire for something, then I'm not tempted when I go to places. Like I used to go party and stuff and like want to feel good, so I would use things. And it's like, if I go to a concert and I'm already feeling comfortable in my own skin, then there is no need to like put something in there. And that's all a result of working the program and applying it into my life. And God, that's like the biggest thing, a higher power, without me trusting that my higher power has my back on every situation, I wouldn't have any of this. Like early on, I remember just like walking around and like in a mall, like when I was like freshly sober, and I'm like, well, I need to find a new job. I can't work for a beer distributor, and it was like, I thought I was going to work at like some like Converse All-Stars shop, right? This is just a little example real quick. And I was like totally set on it. I had like retail experience. I wanted this cool job, like for my new life and all this stuff. And it like totally fell through. And it was like, you know what? Maybe it wasn't meant to be. And that was a new thing for me, because I was always like, well, fuck that shit. Like, and then like get all mad about it. But like a month later, I got a job at a rehab, you know, and that's all God, like working through my life. And yeah, everything that's happened along the way. And like the number one thing about this time for me that's different is there's always something new to learn. There's always more progress for me to be made. Like there isn't like a simple goal of just losing a desire to drink, you know, like for me anymore. Like there's not, that's not the end goal. There is no end goal in this. It's like just continually working my program to be the best version of myself that I can be. And in the process, I don't have to drink, you know, like that's a consolation prize to me, that I don't have to wake up and say, I'm not going to drink today, you know, like unfortunately I don't have to, you know, but it's all like just striving to try to be the best version I can be the best son, be the best brother, boyfriend, you know, and I'm bad at it. A lot of the time I'm very bad at it, but just knowing that I can be better and trying to like, you know, when I act on character defects, you know, and like, um, you know, praying to God, like when I realize what they are, like, please relieve me of these, like, you know, instead of being like, oh, like, fuck them, you know, like it's me, you know? So, you know, it's great. Every situation that pops up, I've been working the 10th step a lot lately, I feel, especially gearing up for a convention and being on a host committee. And like, we're all like ready to do this. Like all our hearts are all in it. So it's like a big deal to all of us. And, you know, like things get heated a lot of times. And it's just, it's growth, you know, it's opportunity for growth, because I'm always going to be working with people in one way or another. So, you know, I have to be able to, you know, see my part in situations and not get resentments. And yeah, and if I do get resentments, to sort it out through, you know, a healthy 10 step. And my alarm went off because I ramble. Um, Shut up. Okay. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you for having us. Uh,
been afraid of changes, but you shown me life is full of faces. Sometimes clouds got in our favorite places, but we were young and unaware.
Oh, I got you, there's no reason to chasing payment on my own, 'cause you're here to stay every night.